Right, what do we have here? I'm not sure the name of this thing, I will find out. It was owned by a friend of mine, Clyde, from the 1066 model Flying Club at Hastings. And as you can see, has a few problems. I was there when it crashed. In fact, I think I've got some footage of it.
There's something snap blue in the air. Holding it, yeah.
Now Clyde, you're going to fix this, aren't you?
No.
Oh, what?
Well, I'll put it aside.
You're going to fix it? You've got to fix it. That's half the fun. You don't need a plan to fix that. You've got the other wing to measure. Oh, didn't even think of that. But do you need a plan? No, you don't need a plan. Don't need a plan. Got enough there. Yeah, it's a biggish job. I concede that. But it's such a lovely model. I always do. I always do. But it won't be till October. And as you can see here again, not so good. And Clyde decided he really didn't want to repair it, which is understandable. But I suggested that I would if it was me. And then one day he turned up on my doorstep and said, well, it is yours. So I've decided I shall now. That was 18 months ago, I should think. There's a bag of bits here, which I shall now pour out and see what other bits we've got. Lots of little bits of balsa, which might help us to put together the jigsaw puzzle before we replace the necessary pieces. Folding prop, motor. Don't know whether that's going to be okay. I'll check that the shaft isn't bent, and then we'll take a chance on it, and if it isn't, when it all goes together we have to replace the motor, but it might be alright. ESC, electronic speed control, that's almost certainly okay. And the sort of canopy on top of the front end. Which is possibly repairable. I've checked the aileron servos and they seem to probably be okay. Again, easily replaceable if not. And I think I'm going to tackle this first because I quite like doing wings. And we need at least 4 new. At least 4 new ribs. So if I can get out of there those bits and put together a drawing of what a complete rib should look like, and I'll make some of those. And this piece has been ripped off the fuselage because the damage finishes here. If I were to, I'm not going to be able to get some yellow, whatever this is, so transparent stuff. So if I recover that, and then maybe strip and recover here, that will match. And then the outer pieces, I think we can leave alone. I did spot some damage here, but I think I can repair that and put a little patch of the same colour that we can rescue from over here on the covering, so it might be okay. In terms of the main spar, that's got to be strong, and probably stronger than it was, because I think that's what gave in when it crashed. So that needs to be reinforced, and maybe reinforce this one too while we're at it, this side, and just reinforce those, build those up near the fuselage where most of the pressure will be. Take it from there. It's always possible to rebuild this part of the fuselage because it doesn't have to look exactly like it did to do the job. But probably it can be pretty much put together as was, I would imagine. I haven't properly examined the tail yet, but it seems to have been unscathed. So we'll find out. Not so bad under there. We'll get this thing back together. This part of the fuselage is very keen to be much wider than it should be. It's springing out, it's going to need a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension there, it's going to need a lot of support to get it back to its shape. As you can see, it's very much wider than it ought to be. It's really needing quite a lot of compression there, so I might have a look at reducing that tension before I reinforce it and get the shape back. So let's get these fixings unscrewed. This side of the wing. Start some surgery. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 breaks in the trailing edge there, so that whole section of trailing edge will need to be replaced. And although it's only this section that's damaged on the leading edge, it's easier just to replace that too. So now we've got to get into that. Piece these two pieces of a broken rib back together, so I can use that, trace that out and use that as a master to make some new ones. I have to put that piece back at the end, on the back end there, to get that right. In fact, here it is. Just a tiny bit more on the end there. So, no mystery about the ribs. And the spar is thin ply, top and bottom. You can see the laser cutting marks there. And then some fairly thick and hard balsa on the sides to make a box spar. And that's what I've got to splice into here to extend it where all the broken pieces have gone. That's the damaged section of the trailing edge removed. There's a break in that rib, and we also have a break here, and I think that means that we splice in a new section of the main spar here and continue it to the end. Possibly the alternative is to put it in here, but that's a good join. If we make this splice well here with some reinforcements, I think that's going to be fine. What I'm planning to do now is fill in this gap with a block of hard balsa to about here, and then that will act as a base for gluing on the new extended ply top and bottom of that spar. So that's what I need to get on with, and then I'll fill in the webbing. Instead of with balsa, I'll fill it in with ply to make that extra strong across the scarf join. I managed to find a piece of balsa that's just big enough and also the right thickness and the right density to make the replacement ribs from. So I'm now cutting out 5 of those plus a spare. That's the original as a guide with a bit missing. Well, that's the new block fitted in there as a support for the what will be the new piece of ply, top and bottom. And now we have this break in there that we have to deal with. And what I'm intending to do is cut the covering panel on the top here, or perhaps underneath, not decided yet, and deal with it and then repatch that with a piece of the old cover from the other part of the wing. Now what I want to do, this material is normally sticky when you put it on, but it doesn't always adhere, and over time it can come a bit loose. So what I'm proposing to do is using the iron, just try to re-adhere that to the sides and here, so that when I cut it, it doesn't start to shrink back and expose other parts. So just keep it to within this little square. This panel that's okay has been stripped so that I can use the same covering to match the opposite side. And what we have to do now is prop up both wing halves at the right angle, and then one of these new ply pieces that I've made has to go in here and join up with the original piece that's cut at an angle here, and then the other one same place but underneath, after which I shall replace the trailing edge with a new piece to match that one. Then the ribs, and finally the leading edge. And these ply pieces will have to be epoxied into there to give a really solid join. I've had to chisel out the old piece and got to get that very strong. I found some solar film covering in yellow, not quite the same yellow as that used on the model, but close enough, and that's all we've got anyway. So it's been stored flat for years, so I'm going to roll it onto this tube, cardboard tube, for a while, just to get the burst of the kinks out and makes it easier to use then. And that's the first piece of the ply glued in there with epoxy. And now I've got the replacement part for the trailing edge to mark up with the notches for the ribs, and after that, next job is to get the ribs in. These 4 ribs can be glued in now. That one has to be split because there's a solid block under that join, so that has to be split into 2 half ribs. Got these ones ready. That's half of it done. I'll wait until I've got the leading edge in before I put the front part of that rib in. Now I have to chamfer down this edge so that it matches this edge. And that will then follow the contour of the ribs and give a fine trailing edge. That's about done. Got to re-thread the aileron cable. Now I can get on with the fuselage.